G'day everyone, welcome back to Risky Rollers. I'm Dalton, and this is the new Leagues of Votann Codex. We're all super excited about the new squats here at the channel, aren't we, Lockie?
No.
Absolutely. So I can't wait to share all these cool rules with you. We're going to have a series of videos on the subject. We're going to cover the rules and special abilities that the leagues have. We're then going to cover the sub-factions, the different leagues, as well as their custom leagues that you can build for them. We're also then going to cover the relics, warlord traits, and psychic powers. We're going to do a video on the stratagems, a video on the data sheets and the points, and top it all off with a video on the chapter approved rules. That's their secondaries, and we're also going to include a little bit of list building or collection building tips and things that we think could be interesting to work out from there. So, without any further ado, make sure you subscribe to see the entire series, and let's crack right on. Okay, this time in our Leagues of Votann preview, we're going over the stratagems. They've got a whole bunch of support in the book, and their stratagems are actually really spicy. So command points are something you are going to want to conserve and be able to farm throughout a game, because they've got so much good support. Let's crack right on and see what it is. So, they've got 4 pages of it, so quite a few. Fairly standard, but for a new army, a smaller book, quite a lot. So the first one is Accelerated Response. This is 1 CP, and this basically means that all of your accelerated units, these are your bikes and your vehicles, and I think they're like the Terminator, the EINHYR champion might be as well, with his like little jetpack thing. This means that when they advance, they just flat out move 12 instead of 6. Because keeping in mind with steady advance, accelerated units already automatically move 6. So that's great. You get those Hexon land fortresses moving an extra 12 inches, or the EINHYR champion just shooting up the board like nothing else. It's pretty cool. Then you've got Ancestral Sentence for 1 CP. This one is, you pick a unit, then when it targets a unit with a judgment token, it rerolls all hits. It's pretty sweet. This is to shoot or fight, so yeah, amazing. Then you have Core Burster Fire Pattern, 1 CP. Now this is for beam weapons. When you target a unit with a beam weapon and you hit, you spend 1 CP on this stratagem. Then for the rest of that phase, every time another beam weapon from your army hits that target, they suffer 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage, to a maximum of 6. This is interesting. You've got to have a lot of beam weapons on the table and you've got to know where your target is. But if a situation comes up where you're like, yeah, actually I can, throw 8 beam weapons at that thing, you may as well spend the CP for those extra mortal wounds. Pretty cool. You then have Cyberstim Infusion for 1 CP. This targets the Chthonian Berserks. These are those crazy dwarf cyber slayers. Essentially, this gives them full rerolls to hit in combat. Great. You have Hunter's Mark for 1 CP. So you pick a unit that has a judgment token. When you target it, you select one of your attacks, and that attack automatically hits. Now, it doesn't automatically hit with a 6. As per the normal 40k rules, it just hits on its basic value to hit. So it's essentially counted as usually a 3+ or a 4+. But it won't trigger the judgment token ability because it doesn't mention that it does here. You then have Kinbond for 2 CP. This is pretty cool. You use this at the start of the fight phase, and you choose an enemy unit that's in combat with 2 of your own units. Each time you make a melee attack against them, you reroll all wound rolls. That's kind of cool. I really like this one because it's a nice flavorful one. It encourages you to set up multiple charges and have a few different things going on in your army. It doesn't stack with your judgment tokens, but it means that if you're targeting a unit that doesn't have any yet, or if you've only got one and you've got a load of attacks, you can really double down on getting those wound rolls through. You then have the Might of the EINHYR for 1 CP. You use it in the shooting phase when an EINHYR unit from your army is selected to shoot, or in the fight phase when they choose to fight. Each time they make an attack, you add 1 to the hit roll. Pretty great. +1 to hit in shooting, or +1 to hit in combat, with a unit that's hitting on 3's base with some pretty powerful weapons. Pretty sweet. Then Optimized Volley for 1 CP. You use it in your shooting phase when you pick a unit to shoot. Until the end of that phase, every time they make an attack with a bolt weapon, so these are all the different variations of bolt carbines and bolters and so on, and auto pattern bolters. Unmodified hit rolls of 6, they score an additional hit. This is interesting. This means that when you hit on those 6s, if you're targeting something with a judgment token, the initial hit will go through with a judgment token and be an automatic wound, but the additional hit will not, because it doesn't count as an automatic 6 as well. It will just be a normal one, because it's not affected by that, and then you have to roll to wound for that. But essentially it means every time you're putting an auto wound through a judgment token, you still get to make an additional roll to see if you wound as well, which is pretty cool. Now you move over to Bequest of the Votann. This is 1 CP, and this is to put a relic on one of your sergeants. one of the Thanes or the EINHYR Masters, or whatever they're called, for your different units. There's a few good ones that could go on them. I like some of the Shield Crest ones for units. So yeah, it's good, 1 CP, list construction, cool. You then of course have Legend of the League. So this one is when you're selecting a Warlord, you can give out another Warlord trait. Alright, it's good, it's fine. The Warlord traits are situationally good. There's going to be times when you want a specific one to make your army do a specific thing, so this will be handy. But do keep in mind, with all the stratagems you're spending before the game, you are going to want them during the game, because there are a lot of strats here that you're going to want to use, so just keep in mind your CP use. Then we go over to Familial Loyalty. This is 1 CP, you choose an infantry or biker unit, and they can heroically intervene as though they were a character. Pretty sweet. Light them up. For 1 CP, you choose a Searchlight unit. Now this is pretty much always going to be a Hernkin Pioneer unit, these are the bikes, but I think you might be able to give a Searchlight to the Sagittal or maybe the Land Fortress. I'll need to double check that. But essentially, you choose them, they pick a unit after they attack. If they hit anything in that unit gains 1 judgment token. Cool. This one is Luck Has, Need Keeps, Toil Earns for 1 CP. It's a nice little Votann saying. It's a cool name. So this one, you use it at the end of your movement phase, and you use it on an infantry unit in range of an objective marker. So automatically pass morale. You get to shoot and charge while doing an action, and you have a 6-up Feel No Pain. Pretty cool. Mag Riders for 1 CP. You use this in your opponent's shooting phase when one of your Hernkin Pioneer or your biker units is that the Pioneers is selected as a target. -1 to hit, and then if you advanced in your previous movement phase, then they also can't reroll hits against you, which is pretty cool. So it means that if you haven't advanced, it's just a -1 to hit strat for 1 CP. Great, already good. If you have, they also can't reroll. So yeah, it's just amazing. For 1 CP, you have Newfound Nemesis. This is when your Warlord is destroyed. In addition to the normal judgment token that unit will gain, they gain an additional one. So you go, cool, you kill my Warlord, well you're going to gain 2 judgment tokens. And if that Warlord was a Grimnir, these are the living ancestors, the Psychers, they gained 3 instead. Pretty nice. Then you have Outflanking Pioneers for 1 CP. You pick a unit of Hernkin Pioneers within 6 inches away from enemy models and 6 inches of the battlefield edge, and you take them off the board, put them into strategic reserves, and they're then brought back on in a later turn. It's nice, it's not the same turn, so you do need to wait a turn with no firepower or no use for them, but it's pretty cool. You take them off, you can then reposition them, bring them back on. If you've got a plan, you know you need an objective next turn, or you know you need lines of fire next turn, this could come in really handy. You then have Point Blank Fusillade. This is 2 CP, very wordy. Essentially, it lets you shoot into combat with a unit that's already in combat. So all the words are basically saying you can only target the thing you're in combat with. And then heavy weapons obviously have a -1 penalty. And then you can, just like with vehicles, big guns never tire, you can allocate targets outside the unit you're in combat with, but you only get to fire that weapon at them if everything in the unit you're in combat with dies as a result of this attack. So you could have a unit of 20 Hernkin with, say, 16 Ion Blasters and a couple of Magna Rail rifles and so on, and then you can select them with this 2 CP and go, well, all the Ion Blasters are going to shoot everything I'm in combat with, and then all the Magna Rail rifles are going to shoot that Dreadnought over there, and then if all the Ion Blasters kill the unit you're in combat with, great, those 2 Rail rifles can shoot the Dreadnought, but if they don't, then you can't fire the Magna Rail rifles because they can't shoot something they're not in combat with. You then have Reactive Reprisal for 1 CP or 2 CP. Essentially, you choose a unit when you are shot at by something. After your opponent has finished shooting at them, you spend the CP if the unit has a judgment token on them, and you can shoot back. This costs 1 CP if it's a Hearthkin Warriors. If it's anything else, any of your other core units, it costs 2 CP instead. This is pretty nice. It makes the idea of your big 20-man blobs getting shot by, some scattered firepower actually really scary, because your opponent has to go, well, maybe he's just going to turn around and have a full phase of shooting back at me, which is pretty nice. You then have Grimwrought Barrier for 2 CP. You pick this one you use the stratagem in your command phase. You select a unit that is within 9 inches of a friendly Grimnir model. These are your living ancestors, your Psychers. This unit that you've selected stops being affected by any psychic powers they were currently under. No more maledictions, no more blessings if that's still in effect for whatever reason, etc. That all stops. Sorry, any that have been manifested by an enemy unit, so only your opponent's ones they put on them. And then until the start of your next command phase, they cannot be affected by maledictions. They can still be targeted by witchfires, they can still take mortal wounds, but they cannot be debuffed. Pretty nice. Then you have Bastion running for 1 CP. This makes your Hecaton land fortresses fight on full bracket. It's good. If you've got the CP and you've got a Hecaton down on last bracket, bringing it all the way up is actually pretty nice. So it could come up. That said, the jump between middle and top bracket's not great. You've probably got better things to spend CP on. But if it comes up, great. Combat Surgery for 1 CP. You choose one of your units that has a medic in it. These are going to be your Halfkin warriors. One of them with a medic, and they heal D3 models. It's cool. It happens in your command phase. So it happens before you claim objectives. So you can use it to like string out and grab objectives like you can with Necrons. But again, situationally amazing, but often something you might just not use in favour of holding the CP to use later in the game. Then you have Personal Grudge for 1 CP. You use it in your command phase, you select one of your characters and one enemy unit on the battlefield. Until the end of the battle, each time your character attacks that unit is considered to have 3 judgment tokens for the purposes of that attack. That's pretty nice. You can only use this stratagem if you're all the same thing, etc, etc. And you can only use this stratagem once unless you're playing Onslaught, i.e. 3,000 points, and then you can use it twice. That's kind of nice. If you've got a warlord that's like buffed up to do like a lot of damage, and you suddenly decide actually this warlord needs to kill that specific model, but I need a bunch of these wounds to go through, this is the stratagem for you. Otherwise, it might come up, but I feel like it's going to be kind of rare. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. We have In the Right Hands for 1 CP. This essentially, you've given out another relic for someone other than your warlord. That's this is for a character, not for one of the sergeants. So, alright, it's good. Relics are pretty good, so that'll come up. Then you have Well-Ordered Retreat for 1 CP. When when a core unit from your army falls back, they can still shoot. Amazing. Concussion Blast for 1 CP. You choose when a unit with the concussion keyword, these are those with concussion grenades, is selected to shoot, you choose one enemy unit within 6 inches of that unit, and then they can't fire Overwatch, and each time they make an attack in the following fight phase, they subtract 1 from their hit roll. Now, it's worth pointing out, it doesn't say that you need to shoot at the unit that you're using the stratagem on. You just need to be within 6 inches. So if you've moved a big brick of Halfkin warriors up, and you're within 6 inches of a target unit that you want to charge, but you're a little bit worried about Overwatch, you can still shoot the entire unit at something else, including throwing grenades at something else, spend the CP, and turn off the Overwatch and make them worse in combat for that one unit that you're about to charge into, without ever targeting them. So it's kind of interesting. It came up recently in one of our test live streams, so make sure you're in our Discord if you want to watch those and see me use all these beforehand. But yeah, it's good. I think it'll come up a lot more than we might think. So yeah. Then we have Ion Storm. This is 2 CP or 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when you choose a unit that's armed with ion weapons to shoot. Until the end of the phase, every time they make an attack with an ion weapon, unmodified wound rolls of 6, so this will trigger off judgment tokens auto-wounding, cause 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. If it contains 11 or more models, it's 2 CP, otherwise it's 1 CP. This feels like it's perfect on those 10-man bricks of Halfkin warriors that are sitting there with, let's say, like 7 ion blasters in the unit, and you've got 2 or 3 judgment tokens on something, and you're going for those auto wounds. You throw out 7 ion blaster shots into them, getting, 4 or 5 of them through with rerolls and so on from everywhere. And, 3 or 4 of those are going to be auto wounds, which are going to automatically wound as normal, plus cause mortal wounds, which is just amazing. Then you have Subterranean Explosives for 2 CP. Use in your shooting phase when a subterranean explosive unit from your army is to shoot. Now, these are the mole mortars that the Chthonian berserks can take. They're pretty cool. They're like, instead of shooting mortars over the top of your enemy, they shoot them into the ground and they burrow and tunnel through underground and come up. It's so dumb, but it's so 40k and I love it. So anyway, you use it when you select one of them to shoot. Anytime the target of their attack makes a ranged attack, you subtract 1 from that attack's wound roll, And if you score a hit against a target that is not Titanic and cannot fly, then they also halve their movement characteristic and they fight last. They can't fight until everything else from your army is fought. That's pretty cool. So it actually gives you a couple of ways to access fight last. It's 2 CP, so it's like, it's a little bit expensive, but when it comes up, it could change the entire course of the game, which is pretty nice. So we then have MULTIWAVE System Jammer for 2 CP. Use this on a unit that has the comms keyword. This comes from the MULTIWAVE comms array you can add to a bunch of different units, the Hernkin Pioneers and I think the Hernkin Warriors. You select one enemy unit within 12 inches of that unit, and that unit may not be affected by any auras in their opponent's army for that phase. You can use this in any phase, so you could turn off your opponent's movement auras, or charge auras, or morale auras, if that's a thing. But you've got to be within 12 inches of the unit you want to affect, and you only affect one unit at a time. At 2 CP, it's pricey, but it could come in really clutch. You have Overcharged Shield Crest for 1 or 2 CP. This goes on a Shield Crest unit. These are, again, your Hearthkin Warriors, your EINHYR Half Guard, or your Hernkin Pioneers, sorry, not the Hernkin Pioneers, the commanders, stuff that have the shield crests. Essentially it gives them transhuman physiology. It's 1 CP if it's on a unit with 5 models, and 2 CP if it's got more than 5 models in it. This is perfect on your EINHYR Half Guard. They come in units of 5, and you probably only want them in units of 5 because they're actually quite susceptible to blast weapons. That multi-damage will do a lot of harm. But making them, toughness 5 is good. There's a lot of strength 8, 9 weapons out there. Getting it to the point where they have transhuman, -1 damage, you can put up Feel No Pains on them, make them super tough. They're basically unkillable, which is pretty sweet. Then Pan-Spectral Warning for 2 CP. This one goes on a Votann scanner unit, which you get from giving a unit a Pan-Spectral scanner. You use it in the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase, and you can shoot it at something coming in a deep strike. It's essentially an All-Spec scan. It's pretty nice, 2 CP. Alright, cool. Then finally you have Site-to-Site Transport for 1 or 2 CP. This, you pick a teleportation unit, which you give units by giving them a teleport crest instead of a shield crest. So these are things like the EINHYR Half Guard and the EINHYR Champion. You choose one of them on the battlefield, you take them off the battlefield, and you redeploy them somewhere else in the battlefield more than 9 inches away. It's pretty nice. If it was a character, it's 1 CP. If it's a unit, it costs 2 CP. So your EINHYR Half Guard with 2 CP can redeploy anywhere in the battlefield during the movement phase. It's also worth mentioning, there is, I believe, a Warlord trait you can give to one of your characters that lets them do this once for free, which could be amazing. Having a unit of the EINHYR Half Guard, potentially a unit of 10 of them, because this might be where you want to use that. You have a big brick of them, they sit behind out of line of sight next to this character that can make them do this for free once per game. Turn 1, you go, cool, I'm going to drop this brick right in the middle of your lines, and you're going to have to deal with it. Oh, now they're transhuman, oh, now they're this, now they're that. You could do a lot of damage with that, which is pretty nice. But that wraps up all the stratagems that you can use for the Leagues of Votann. There are, of course, a bunch of them for all the different specific leagues, and we covered those in our video on the specific leagues, which you can check out further back in this playlist. Otherwise, make sure you're subscribed. Jump into the Discord if you want to see some more live streams going on. This Friday, I'm actually bringing 2,000 points of them on the channel to try them out and play a bit more of a competitive list. So come along, watch that one, check it out, and then, of course, be subscribed when we actually start live streaming and I start running them on the channel proper. You'll get to see it all. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that preview as much as I did. I'm super excited to get these space dwarfs onto the table, and I know Lockie's keen to face them. Spot on. So, we're all excited for that. So not only are we doing this series where we cover the entire book and all the rules coming out of it, which make sure you subscribe so you see the whole thing, but we're also doing a full Codex review as soon as that book drops. And when we do, Lockie, what are we doing about that?
Giving away the book!
Not just the book though.
And the army box!
And the army box! It's gonna be cool. I can't wait. I love squats. They're cool. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that, and you make sure you catch the cheeky battle report we'll have out with them very soon. See you guys on the table.